What if I told you that what you think is fatigue is not fatigue at all? That the weight pressing down on your chest every morning when you wake up, the fog in your mind that no coffee can clear, and that strange emptiness despite everything you've achieved isn't physical tiredness or even emotional burnout, but something far deeper, far older. Something philosophers like Schopenhauer tried to warn us about, something spiritual. Imagine this: you wake up in a beautiful home, there's food in your fridge, your phone buzzes with notifications, and yet you feel hollow. Not sad, not anxious, just hollow. And the scariest part, you felt this way for so long, you've started thinking it's normal. But it's not. This is not just tiredness. This is spiritual exhaustion. And Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, saw it coming centuries ago.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
So what is this dark insight Schopenhauer had? Why is it more relevant than ever before? Arthur Schopenhauer believed that at the core of every human being is something he called the will to live, a blind, irrational force that drives all of our actions, desires, and suffering. Unlike other philosophers who saw human beings as rational or divine, Schopenhauer saw us as slaves to this will, forever chasing, forever desiring, forever wanting. And here's the catch: the moment we get what we want, we become bored. The moment we don't get it, we suffer. We are trapped between pain and boredom. So let me ask you, when was the last time you truly felt content? Not distracted, not entertained, not numbed, but truly at peace with nothing more than your own presence? If you can't remember, you're not alone. And Schopenhauer would say, you're not tired. Your soul is screaming. In today's world, we've perfected distraction. We binge the next show, scroll through infinite feeds, chase the next goal. But everything we do to escape the emptiness adds to it. The will is never satisfied. The more we feed it, the hungrier it gets. And slowly, without realizing it, we become spiritually drained. Because deep down, your soul knows that these things are not enough. You weren't made for endless scrolling. You weren't made to chase approval or numbers on a screen. You were made for depth, for silence, for meaning. But our culture has no patience for silence, does it? Silence terrifies us, because in silence we come face to face with ourselves. And most of us don't like what we see. But that's exactly where the healing begins. Schopenhauer didn't just leave us in the darkness. He pointed to a path out, though it's not easy. He believed that true peace comes not from fulfilling desires, but from transcending them, from recognizing the will and choosing not to obey it. That's why he admired asceticism, art, music, and compassion. Because these are moments when human beings rise above the blind drive to want and consume. Have you ever been so moved by a piece of music that, for a minute, you forgot yourself? That's not just beauty. That's liberation from the will. And in that moment, you were closer to the truth than in years of chasing goals. So what would it look like to live from that place? To build a life not on desire, but on presence. We don't talk about spiritual exhaustion in our culture. We label it depression, anxiety, burnout. We try to treat it with pills, productivity hacks, or vacations. But none of that touches the root. The root is metaphysical. It's existential. It's the aching sense that life is passing us by while we're busy surviving, that we're disconnected from something essential, something sacred, and that we've lost our way. And the first step back isn't to do more, it's to stop. And to stop running, to sit still, to listen. Because your soul is not a machine. It doesn't respond to upgrades. It responds to meaning. And meaning is not found in the rush, it's found in the pause. Schopenhauer's insight is terrifying because it's true. He saw that suffering isn't an exception in life, it is life. But here's the twist: he believed that through compassion, we could begin to dissolve the ego, to see ourselves in others, and to escape the prison of endless wanting. That's the spiritual path, not material success, not even happiness, but transcendence. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something with no benefit to you, purely out of love? Something that didn't feed your ego, but fed your soul? If it's been a while, maybe that's the medicine you need. Maybe that's where healing begins. Think about how we treat rest. Even our rest is performative. I took a self-care day, we say, then post it on social media. But real rest isn't for show. It's sacred. It's the act of reclaiming your soul from a world that's trying to sell it back to you, piece by piece. And if you don't make time for spiritual renewal, you will break. Not in a dramatic way, no flames, no collapse, but in a slow, numbing fade, a forgetting. Until one day, you wake up and realize you don't recognize yourself. That's what it means to be spiritually drained, not tired, disconnected from the source, from life, from yourself. So what's the way back? It's not a hack. It's not a quick fix. It's a reorientation of your entire life. It's asking questions that most people are too scared to ask. Like, what am I actually living for? Whose voice is guiding my choices? What if the reason I feel so empty is because I've been living someone else's dream? These are dangerous questions, but they're also holy because they lead you back to the truth. And the truth is, your soul is trying to wake you up. That heaviness you feel, it's not weakness. It's a calling, a signal that something essential has been lost and that it's time to come home. Schopenhauer believed that art and beauty give us a glimpse of the eternal. In a world obsessed with utility, that's revolutionary. Because beauty has no purpose except to be. And maybe that's the lesson. Maybe you're not here to hustle or grind or win. Maybe you're here to be, to experience, and to feel, to love. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. But you'll never know until you stop chasing and start listening. Until you stop numbing and start feeling. Until you stop pretending you're just tired and admit that your soul is starving. So how do we feed the soul? Not with more, never with more, but with less, with silence, with sacred rituals, and with deep conversations, with service, and with stillness, with the courage to face the pain instead of running from it. Because pain, when embraced, transforms. It becomes wisdom. That's what Schopenhauer meant. Not that life is meaningless, but that meaning is not given. It must be carved out, like a sculpture, from the chaos of existence. And only those who suffer deeply enough to see the truth can begin to shape it. Let me ask you, what are you running from? What truth have you buried under your busyness? What longing have you silenced because it didn't fit into your plan? These questions are dangerous, but they're also liberating. Because the moment you stop pretending, the moment you admit that this isn't working, that your soul is tired, something cracks open. And through that crack, light enters. Not the blinding light of artificial success, but the soft, steady glow of authenticity, of presence, of meaning. It starts small. A breath, a pause, a tear. But if you follow it, it leads you home. Let's go deeper. Because now you've seen the surface of the wound, but the real transformation begins when you dare to sit with it. Not escape it, not fix it, just sit. That's one of the hardest things to do in a world addicted to movement. But Schopenhauer's dark brilliance forces us to confront something most of us spend our lives avoiding. That suffering is not a glitch in the system, it is the system. And until we face this, we will keep confusing spiritual pain for physical tiredness, and the soul's call for silence as a signal to hustle harder. This is why so many people feel lost even when they're technically winning. Because they've mastered survival, but forgotten how to live. There's a strange paradox here. We chase pleasure like it's oxygen, but the more we consume, the more we suffocate. We try to outrun boredom, but it always catches up. Why? Because the will, as Schopenhauer called it, is not rational. It doesn't care about peace. It thrives on craving, on agitation. The moment you satisfy one desire, another rises like a shadow behind it. And the more you obey it, the more you lose yourself. This is why scrolling for hours on your phone leaves you more exhausted than before. It's not the screen, it's the soul deep dissonance of feeding the will while starving your spirit. When you live a life constantly pulled forward by unfulfilled desire, you will always feel behind, always not enough, always tired. But here's the secret. You can begin to reverse this. You can begin to observe the will instead of being ruled by it. That's where true power lies, not in domination over others, but in freedom from yourself. The part of you that's constantly chasing, comparing, proving that's not your essence. That's your programming, and it can be seen. It can be questioned. It can be unlearned. But you have to want the truth more than you want comfort. Are you willing to trade your illusions for clarity, even if it hurts? Are you willing to feel the full weight of your own emptiness, trusting that it might lead to something sacred? These are the questions that separate those who awaken from those who stay asleep. Schopenhauer once said, "A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants." Think about that. You didn't choose your cravings. You didn't choose your fears. You didn't choose the emptiness inside of you, but you can choose how you respond to it. And maybe that's where freedom begins. Not by escaping suffering, but by transforming your relationship with it. Not by numbing the pain, but by turning toward it with curiosity. What is this pain trying to teach me? What illusion is it trying to expose? What deeper truth am I being invited to see? These aren't quick fix questions. They're lifelong meditations. But if you stay with them, they will break you open in the best possible way. So how do we begin to heal spiritual exhaustion? First, we must slow down. You cannot hear the voice of your soul when your life is moving at the speed of distraction. Stillness is not laziness, it's rebellion. Stillness says, I'm no longer available for the noise. I'm no longer a slave to performance. I'm here now, and that's enough. Second, we must feel deeply. Most people are emotionally constipated. We've been taught to suppress, to smile, to be fine. But your soul doesn't care about appearances. It cares about truth, and sometimes the truth is raw, ugly, chaotic. Let it be. Let yourself cry without explaining it. Let yourself grieve what you never got. Let yourself feel the weight of your own disconnection, because only then can you reconnect. Third, we must redefine success. Our culture worships achievement, but the soul craves meaning. And meaning is often found in the small, quiet, invisible things. In watching a sunset without taking a photo, in holding space for a friend's tears, in creating art that no one else may ever see. These are not glamorous acts, but they are sacred, and they restore something ancient and essential within you. You don't need to be a monk to live spiritually. You just need to live consciously, to make choices that honor your inner world, not just your outer image. That's what it means to live beyond the will, to stop chasing what the world tells you to want and start listening to what your soul is whispering. But make no mistake, this path is not easy. In fact, it's terrifying, because it means letting go of the very things you've built your identity on. It means admitting that the life you fought for might not be the life your soul actually wants. It means walking away from the noise and into the unknown. But what if that void you fear is actually sacred space? What if it's not emptiness but potential? A blank canvas where you can finally paint your truth instead of someone else's expectations? The spiritual path begins here, not in a temple, not in a retreat, but in the raw honesty of your own heart. Are you brave enough to listen to it? This is what Schopenhauer was pointing to, in his bleak but strangely beautiful way. That true peace doesn't come from winning the game of life, but from realizing the game itself is rigged. That the endless cycle of desire, fulfillment, boredom, and desire again is not the path out, it's the trap. And that the only way out is into stillness, into simplicity, into self-awareness, into love, not romantic love, but the deeper kind. Compassion, empathy, the recognition that we are all suffering, all struggling, all yearning to be seen and known. And when you live from that space, everything changes. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop needing to win. You just start being. So what does your soul actually want? Not your mind, not your ego, your soul. If you stripped away the pressure to succeed, the fear of judgment, the addiction to productivity, what would be left? What would remain if you stopped performing? Most people never find out, because they're too busy trying to become someone. They never discover who they already are. But you can. You can start now, not tomorrow. Now, by putting down your phone, by closing your eyes, by breathing, by listening. The soul is always speaking. It's just that the world is always louder. But if you listen closely, you'll hear it in the silence, in the ache, in the stillness you've been avoiding. And maybe that's the real reason you're tired. Not because you've done too much, but because you've done too little of what matters. of what nourishes, of what heals. You've spent your life running from pain instead of learning from it, chasing highs instead of building depth. You've survived, but now it's time to live. And living starts with presence. Not someday. Not when you've earned it. Now. Because your soul is not waiting for you to be perfect. It's waiting for you to be real. And in a world that's lost itself in illusion, being real is the most radical thing you can do. Now that you've looked into the abyss, now that you've felt the weight of what Schopenhauer was really saying, here's the hardest truth of all. No one is coming to save you. Not a guru. Not a course. Not even this video. Because the journey back to your soul is one you have to walk alone. And that's terrifying, isn't it? But it's also beautiful. Because it means the power is already within you. You're not broken. You're just buried beneath years of programming, expectation, distraction, and noise. But the real you, the silent, aware, infinite you is still there, waiting, watching, patiently. Schopenhauer's insight wasn't meant to crush our spirit, it was meant to strip away the lies, to bring us face to face with our conditions so we could finally stop pretending. He didn't offer false hope. He offered freedom. And freedom doesn't look like endless pleasure. It doesn't look like fame or money or success. It looks like release. Release from the constant need to be more, to do more, to acquire more. Imagine that for a moment. A life where you are no longer defined by how much you produce, how much you achieve, or how much you're liked. A life where your value is not a question because your being is the answer. But first, you have to let yourself feel. Spiritual exhaustion is not a signal to push harder. It's a sacred message. You've wandered too far from yourself. So listen. When your body breaks down, when your mind spirals, when your heart feels numb, that's not failure. That's direction. That's your soul rerouting you. And if you can stop long enough to hear it, you'll begin to sense something deeper. A pulse beneath the chaos. A presence beneath the pain. A stillness that is not absence, but awareness. That stillness is not empty, it's full. And full of everything you've been searching for in all the wrong places. Ask yourself this: when did you stop listening to your intuition? When did you trade awe for routine? Wonder for efficiency? When did you start believing that you had to earn rest, earn love, earn worth? These are not small questions. They are soul-level questions. And if you're brave enough to sit with them, they will shatter your illusions. But they will also set you free. Because once you see the game for what it is, a cycle of endless craving, you can step off the treadmill. You can stop running. You can begin to live not for the next achievement, but for the depth of this moment. Schopenhauer believed that suffering could become a doorway, not just to despair, but to transcendence. That in moments of deep pain, we are closest to what is real. Not because pain is good, but because it strips away everything false. Think about your darkest moments. Weren't they also the moments when you saw life most clearly? When the masks fell. When the people who truly mattered revealed themselves. When your values became crystal clear. That's what he meant. That suffering is not the enemy, it's the invitation. The question is, will you accept it? We've been sold a lie that life is supposed to feel good all the time. That discomfort is a problem. That sadness is weakness. But what if sadness is a sign of soul? What if the ache you feel is proof that you're still alive in a world that wants you numb? What if your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a gift? In Schopenhauer's world, the sensitive ones suffer more, but they also see more, they feel more. And if they can survive the despair, they can become the most awakened of all. So if you feel too much, if you've been told you're too emotional, too intense, too deep, maybe that's your superpower. Maybe the world doesn't need more numb achievers. Maybe it needs more conscious feelers. Spiritual exhaustion is the soul's rebellion. It's your inner being saying, I can't live like this anymore. And the only way out is not to push through, but to surrender. Not in weakness, but in wisdom. To stop fighting reality and start embracing truth. That you are not your job. You are not your thoughts. You are not your productivity. You are awareness watching. You are presence unfolding. And when you let go of everything you thought you had to be, what remains is enough. Not perfect, but enough. And that's the beginning of healing. We must reclaim the sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a real sense. Sacredness is not about incense or rituals, it's about reverence. Reverence for your breath, for your being, for the miracle that you even exist. And when you begin to live from that space, everything changes. Oh, your relationships deepen, your work becomes meaningful, your rest becomes healing. Because you're no longer trying to prove yourself, you're expressing yourself. You're no longer trying to earn love, you're recognizing yourself as love. And that is the most radical act in a world that profits from your self-doubt. Ask yourself, what would it look like to live a sacred life? Not a perfect life, not a successful life, a sacred life. One where every moment is treated as holy. One where presence is more valuable than productivity. One where your worth is not on the line every day. One where silence is your teacher. This is not fantasy. This is possible. But it requires the death of your false self, the persona, the ego, the character you've been playing. And death is painful. But after death comes birth. And perhaps spiritual exhaustion is the labor pain of your rebirth. Schopenhauer taught that compassion is the highest virtue. Not because it's nice, but because it dissolves the ego. When you suffer and you see that others suffer too, something breaks open. A shared humanity. A recognition that we are all lost, all searching, all carrying invisible wounds. And in that recognition, love is born. Not the kind of love that demands or controls, but the kind that sees, that holds space. That says, I see your pain, and I'm not afraid of it. That kind of love is healing. And it starts with you. With seeing yourself that way, with holding your own pain with tenderness instead of shame. This is the path Schopenhauer points us toward. Not the path of endless striving, but the path of awakening. It's not glamorous. It won't get you 1 million followers overnight. But it will give you something far more valuable, yourself, your soul, your peace. And when you live from that place, you become a light in the dark. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And in a world starving for authenticity, That is the greatest gift you can offer. So let me ask you one last question, the deepest one of all. What would your life look like if you truly believed your soul mattered more than your image? Let the answer ripple through you. Let it shake things loose. Let it disturb your comfort and ignite your longing. Because that longing, that achy, that quiet scream inside of you, it's not weakness. It's your soul remembering who you are, what you came here to do, and how far you've drifted. But now you know, you're not just tired, you're spiritually drained, and more importantly, you're awakening. Let this be the beginning of your return, not to the world's expectations, but to your own essence. Let go. Listen. Begin again. The soul is waiting, and this time, you're ready.